there were times when I pictured like the drapes blowing in the wind, and you know, the lightning outside, almost like a bad Celine Dion video. But no, I really enjoyed this album. But for the most part, all the way through. I mean, there was a couple spots where, I was like, but for the most part, this is the type of CD that needs to be heard, by the way, in my opinion, all the way through.
Yeah.
It's not really a, I mean, yeah, you could pull singles out of it. It's not like, Dream Theater's newest one, Gift of Music, where you can't do that. But it certainly, I think, adds value from one track to the next.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, I mean, this is a German but mostly Czech Republic-based band, which is interesting because you don't see a lot of bands from that. But again, they came out with their first album in 2008, but their bass player died in 2010. And so, I mean, this is an album that they've been working on again, off again with, trying to get studio time and get the people in the camp that they wanted, for quite some time. I mean, they started recording this album, if my memory serves me correctly, when I was reading, like in 2013. So, I mean, this is years in the making type of thing. And now you have two vocalists, you have two singers on the album, and I think bringing in Herbie was a genius move because he really does add a lot to it. But if you want me to summarize the sound of Symphonity to me, I get a lot of Symphony X. But what's interesting to me, and I don't want to do a track by track type of review, but we've talked about this before. When you hear the song King of Persia, which is the title track, and it's also the first track on the album, and Biv and I have talked about this before, and Biv has even said, and I'm trying to think of the review you were talking about, Biv, where you're talking about, maybe it was it Imminent Sonic Destruction's Triumphia, the first track off the album, which was lengthy, and you went, that's a risk, because if it doesn't work, that could be a problem. Exactly. But it did work, and so it's okay. In my mind, King of Persia, just the name alone, what do you think it's going to be? Well, it's an opening track, it's 10 minutes long, and to me, it's a bad move here. Not because it's a bad song, I just don't think it's in the right place on the album. I mean, it has a very Middle Eastern vibe. It has, flutes even on the song. I mean, they're trying to create an atmosphere. And it
kind of almost has like a Mirith, like Orphaned Land.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but to me, while it's a good track, it reminds me a lot of the Odyssey from Symphony X. And the Odyssey is freaking awesome and one of the best songs they've ever done. But it was also the 7th track on the album. And it was put there for a reason. They didn't kick off the album with the Odyssey, even though that's the title track of the album. They kicked it off with Inferno, which is a 4-minute, freaking speed metal, grabs you by the balls and kicks ass. That's, to me, they could have done that here. And I think this song, while good, is not in the right spot. And maybe I'm just being a douche and being overcritical about it, but that's just my thought. Where if you look at the next song, like The Choice, for example, which has a very Stradivarius sound to it, to me, easily could have been an opening track. And then another favorite on the album, which doesn't sound anything like the rest of the album, but I really like it, and I almost wish they would do some more stuff like that, is Flying. It's a very melodic hard rock, like 80s style guitar riffs, sing-along chorus.
Almost AOR.
Yeah, I really, really dig this song, and it doesn't fit with the rest of the album, but it works because I actually really like it. Whereas if you just heard Children of the Light, like we played here in the beginning of the review, dude, that screams Sinbreed, or Symphony X style. And again, totally makes sense when you have Herbie Langon singing in the band, because that's right up his alley, blistering, double bass with, ultra speedy riffs. That's what it is. I also think tracks like Live to Tell the Tale may as well been something that Toby wrote for Avantasia.
I agree.
Yeah, just really catchy riff, very catchy chorus. Really good song. I think there's this couple of misses on the album. Some of the slower ballad songs but that shouldn't surprise you. You know me and ballads. And I'm not saying that they're slow, but just kind of more mid-tempo, like, I can skip this song and not be disappointed. However, the ones that are good are really good. Not just like, oh, it's a good song. Like, it's either songs that I could skip or songs that are arguably some of the better songs I've heard this year good. So overall, for me, I actually gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I'm really impressed with the direction these guys are going. And by the way, if you're a streaming audio person, it's so funny. We reviewed Far Beyond, we reviewed Symphonity. Look at the streams that these artists have. It's laughable, unfortunately. Like, it's had very little streams for incredibly awesome bands that just makes you shake your head. When you have just absolute top 40 bubblegum crap that has 40 million streams, and then you have an album like, King of Persia off of Symphonity, that while it's a newer album, it's just a damn shame that more people haven't heard it, which is why we do what we do, why we do the podcast and recommend that you check out bands you've never heard of like these guys, because these guys absolutely kick ass, and I hope it's not another 8 years before we hear something new from them, because I think they did a hell of a job with this album, and I'm really impressed. Like I said, 8.5 out of 10.
Well, I can't disagree with a lot that you said there. Instead of you said you got a lot of, remind me, what bands did you get out of this?
A couple tracks for Stradivarius and a lot of Symphony X for me.
Okay, I could definitely see the Strat. The Symphony X, I don't see quite as much, but I definitely see Avantasia.
Yeah, some of their more slower, epic stuff is definitely, yeah.
And, of course, some Sinbreed, but that's to be expected. When you've got Herbie doing some vocals, probably had a little bit to do with the writing process as well. Maybe, that's at least it's thought. Or maybe it was written with him in mind. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I gave it an 8 out of 10. Okay. And that's a very solid score. It's something I would own on CD because of exactly what you said. There are certain tracks that I want to have in my collection, but it's not probably the top CD that I'd rush out and buy right this minute. But if you're a fan of Avantasia, if you're a fan of Sinbreed, Symphony X, or just good progressive metal in general, Mirith, Orphan Land, you can get quite a bit of different influences out of this CD, then definitely check it out. It is available on Spotify.
Yeah, to me, I think it's more in the Symphony X Stradivarius camp, but either way, good stuff. You'll dig it if it's if that's kind of the, I don't want to say epic metal. Well, I guess I mean there's some epic / power metal, definite. Epic power metal, I guess, would be kind of the way to categorize this. I think they categorize themselves as melodic metal. Yes, I'm not disagreeing with that, but I think melodic metal is such a shitty description anyway, because I mean you mean metal that has melody? Well, that's a lot. I mean, it's just general to me, but anyway, whatever. Maybe I'm being too nitpicky or critical. But anyway, not being nitpicking critical of Symphonity's most recent album, King of Persia. Check it out. That was Sorceress from Opeth's most recent album of the same title, Sorceress, and this may be a long review, Biv. I have lots and thoughts and opinions on this, and you know what? Typically I do a little intro and I kick it over to Biv, and then Biv gives me his thoughts, and then I sum it up. But it's gonna be a while for me, so Biv, I'll let you say what you need to say about Opeth's most recent album.
No, take it away, because I'm probably just going to feed off what you have to say anyway, I think.
Okay.
Well, maybe.
So,
because I know you were an early Opeth fan.
Oh, dude, so let me give you some background. This is one of those bands for me that, and hear me out here because I'm going somewhere. Just like the new Metallica, just like the new In Flames album for me, it will be the kind of band that has such a special place in my heart from many, many, many years ago that I unfortunately get my hopes up, of, I hope it's going to be the band I fell in love with when I first liked them. And then you typically end up disappointed and pissed off, right? And that to me is continuing to be Opeth. The first album I ever heard from Opeth was My Arms, Your Hearse, which was awesome. In fact, Biv, when I met you, the album I listened to the most that entire year, what was that, 2001? Right?
That was 2000.
No, I think it was 2001. Anyway, either way. Was Blackwater Park from Opeth. I remember, and I think you were with me. I think we were driving around prospecting, I think, and I had you stop at a Best Buy so I can run in and get it on the day it came out.
Dude, is that where we picked up the Pink Pages?
No. What is that, Tower Records that wasn't at Best Buy?
Oh, okay.
That's a whole other story for another episode. But no, so I mean, like this, I'm like, dude, Blackwater Park, I'm picking this up, and I fell in love with it. Obviously, I listened to Still Life, which came out before Blackwater Park, but Blackwater Park just did such a good job of that mix of just very. There's no other way to say it. Like, you hear certain songs on the album, like The Drapery Falls and Bleak, and just very moments of very beautiful music. I mean, just flat out beautiful music, and then mixed with, some very melodic, heavy riffs with growled vocals that are just incredibly good. And then yet he was one of the first, Michael Ockerfeld's one of the first vocalists I ever heard that could do growled vocals and then have amazingly good clean. Like really well sung, like this is the same dude reaction when you're hearing him sing clean. And the song Bleak off of Blackwater Park is a great example of what I'm talking about there. And so, everything they'd done up until Watershed was still really good. Not as good as I'd hoped. You had Damnation and you had Deliverance, which was kind of, a very heavy album in one, and a very soft in Damnation was more their acoustic stuff, but still really good. And then you had 2011 and you had Heritage. And this is the album that just made me go, what in the hell is this, and what did you do with Opeth? This was an album that had a very, and make no mistake about it, Michael Ockerfeld's been very vocal in saying that his favorite music and his biggest influences have been that 70s progressive rock sound that he's in love with. He loves it, and he listens to it all the time, way more so than actual metal. And that's the direction this band has taken. There's just a slight problem with that. If I wanted to hear Deep Purple, if I wanted to hear Yes, if I wanted to hear even some Pink Floyd, I would effing listen to those bands. I want to listen to Opeth to listen to freaking Opeth. So they do this with Heritage in 2011. You have, was it Pale Communion in 2014, I want to say? And then you have Sorceress. And just like Metallica and just like In Flames, I go, all right, well, here comes Opeth, and I'm sure I'll end up getting excited to then eventually listen to the album and get kicked square in the nuts like I usually do by these guys, but I'm going to do it again. And yet here we are, folks. You listen to Sorceress, and what happens? Yep, I got kicked in the nuts once again, and if you're an Opeth fan, you did too. Because you hear the opening track is Persephone. It's like a 2-minute, just kind of an acoustic, very beautiful sounding song, and kind of harkens some of the really soft Opeth stuff that you have come to love at one point. And then you go into Sorceress, which we just played for you. But when I first heard Sorceress, and this was one of the, kind of the release, lyric videos, or maybe it was their actual video, I don't remember, that Opeth came out with. And for the first 10 seconds, I thought I was listening